Hello and welcome to my channel. Today's video we are going to be making this cute little version of Pennywise. Its body is all no-sew, and then we will have to embroider on the nose, mouth, feet, and all the little extra details, and then add a little bit of hair. For this video I will be using a number 4 medium weight yarn, a 4.25 millimeter hook, and 10 millimeter safety eyes. This is a crochet along, so I will be doing every stitch with you, and I'm also providing a drop down at the top of the screen with the pattern instructions for the first 30 seconds of every row for you to follow along with. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button and click that bell. Not only does that help me out, but you'll also be notified every time I load a new video, as well as any likes, shares, and comments are always appreciated. Okay, I think that's everything, so grab your yarn and let's get started. All right, we're going to start at the top of the head, and you can begin your rounds any way you prefer as long as you have the same amount of stitches in row 1. I do a knot with a loop on the end like I'm making a chain, so I'm going to fold my yarn in half. I'm going to grab up at the top to make my loop, wrap that around my finger, bring that loop down, around, and through to make my knot. Then I'm going to pinch that loop, and I'm just going to slide this knot up so my loop is just a little bit bigger than my hook. And you're going to insert your hook, grab your yarn, pull up, and chain 1. And remember that that does not count as a stitch. That's just attaching our yarn to our loop. And for row 1, going over top of the tail, we're going to do 8 single crochets into that loop. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then pull on that tail to close that hole if you need to. Grab a stitch marker if you're using one. And for row 2, we are going to do 8 increases. So that's 2 single crochets in every stitch all the way around for a total of 16. So increase 1 and 2 in the same stitch. Increase 3 and 4. Increase 5 and 6. Increase 7 and 8. Increase 9 and 10. Increase 11 and 12. Increase 13 and 14. And our last increase 15 and 16. Row 3, we are going to do 1 single crochet, 1 increase, repeat that pattern all the way around for a total of 24. So 1 single crochet for 1, 1 increase for 2 and 3, and repeat that around. 4, increase, 5 and 6, 7, increase, 8 and 9, 10, increase, 11 and 12, 13, increase, 14 and 15, 16, increase, 17 and 18, 19, increase, 20 and 21, 22, and our last increase, 23 and 24. Row 4, we are going to do 24 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Row 5, we are going to do 24 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Row 6, we are going to do 24 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Row 7, 24 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Row 8, we are going to do 24 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and then on our 24th one we're going to change color, so we're just going to go in, grab our yarn and pull up and stop, leaving those 2 loops on the hook. And I'm going to cut my yarn. Leave yourself enough for tying, and then you're going to grab your second color, and we're just going to tie our old color to our new color nice and tight, as close to the hook as you can get it, 2 or 3 times. And then you're just going to grab that new color. You're going to pull it through those last 2 loops of the previous row, finish off that stitch. Row 9, we are going to do 24 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Row 10, we are going to do 24 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Row 11, 24 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Row 12, 24 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Now we're just going to take our hook out because we're going to add the eyes and a little bit of stuffing now. So get those ready. And what we're going to do is we want to find our center front. So I'm just going to come, and because I'm doing something right here, I'm going to make this the center of my back. So I'm just going to flip it over. And it's already pretty centered, so I'm just going to start counting from here, and we're going to put our eyes in between rows 6 and 7. So you're going to find your starting loop. That's going to be row 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then just in between rows 6 and 7, and I'm going into a stitch. I'm not going into a hole. I want a hole on either side. If I can get it in there. So I've got my needle and then a hole on each side of my needle. And then we're going to grab our first eye, and we want to go 3 holes over. So I'm going to go in that first hole right beside my needle. And I'm going to count over 3. So 1, 2, and then in that third hole. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So we want that hole right beside our needle. Right there. So 1, 2, 3. So it's going to look like this. And then we're going to put the backs on. I like to put my finger on the eye and then push it out, and then I know I've got it up through that stitch really good. And now we're going to grab our stuffing, and we're going to stuff it about 2/3 full. Just so we have enough stuffing in there so that when we do our last couple rows to close, we don't have to add a lot of extra stuffing, but it's also not in our way when we do our next row. So about that much. And then the next row we're going to be going in the back loop, so I'll just quickly show you that if you've never done that before. So normally you go under your stitches there, under that V. This time you're going to come down between the V's of your stitch and out the back. So you're going to go in all these back loops, and you're going to leave all these front loops, and that will make him kind of be flat on the bottom. So let's get our hook back in. And for row 13, in the back loops, we are going to do 1 single crochet, 1 decrease, repeat that all the way around for a total of 16. So down through the center of the V of your stitch, 1 single crochet for 1, and then a decrease for 2. And then we're just going to repeat that around, and see, you can see the front loops there are just going to be hanging out there. So single crochet for 3, decrease for 4, single crochet, 5, decrease, 6, single crochet, 7, decrease, 8, single crochet, 9, decrease, 10, single crochet, 11, decrease for 12, single crochet for 13, decrease for 14, single crochet for 15, and our last decrease for 16. See how it's kind of flattened out those stitches. And for row 14, we are just going to do 8 decreases all the way around, and we're going back normal now under both of the V's. So 1 decrease, 2 decreases, 3 decreases, 4 decreases, 5 decreases, 6 decreases, 7 decreases, and our last one here, 8 decreases. And then you are just going to slip stitch into the next stitch, tie that off, leave yourself quite a bit of a tail. I like to bring mine up to the front, and then that gives me options, or the top gives me options if I want to make a loop or a chain, if you don't have any keychains, or if you're just leaving it normal like this, you can just cut it off after. All right, so cut that. I'm going to take my stitch marker out so it's out of our way. And then we'll just grab some more stuffing and fill up that bottom. So now when you're stuffing it, you want to be coming out to the sides. So you kind of keep this at a corner, and you don't want this to be rounded. You want it to stay flat. So I just take my stuffing and I just scooch it into those corners. So if I feel like an empty area, I'll just go that way until it feels full. I'm going to add a little bit more yet. You want it to be fairly firm. And then as soon as you see that it's kind of starting to round out, you probably got enough and you can stop. So see, mine's starting to round out a little bit. I'm just going to fix that around, push a little to the top and out to the sides. So it should look like this. Okay, we're going to add the details now, and just take note, I'm not closing this yet because I'm going to be putting all my detail threads up the center and tying them off on the bottom. So make sure you don't close that up and get ahead of yourself. All right, we're going to start with the little ruffle around the neck, and we're going to be attaching our yarn. And you can attach your yarn any way you prefer, but I'll be doing my knot with the loop on the end. Make sure you leave yourself a bit of a tail first though, so we can tie that end in when we're done. And we're going to find the back right where our gray and white met, so right about here. And we're just going to be going around this bar for all our stitches around in between the two rows. So I'm going to go in right where they meet, around that little bar of the stitch. Whoop. And that's how I'm going to go all the way around. So let's attach our yarn. I'm going to put it on my hook, bring it through, and I'm going to chain one. Now this isn't going to count as a stitch, this is just to attach. And in that same stitch, we're going to do a single crochet. Mine might look a little messy because I got to hold it up in the air and try and keep it centered. And then we're just going to do that all the way around. So in the next hole, single crochet. Next hole, single crochet. Next hole, single crochet. And you're just going to do that all the way around. I'm just going under that next bar in every stitch. And if you're used to the counting, there should be about 24. Close to the end here now. And then I have no perfect way here at the end to finish and join them. So I'm just going to go as far as I think I need to. So there's no space between. So here is really my last stitch. But I'm also going to go diagonally across so they match up a little nicer and I'm not pulling it up to finish off the row. And then you're just going to go and do a slip stitch into that first stitch, and then we'll tie that off. Again, leave yourself a little bit of a tail so that you can put that in, which maybe we will do right now too. So I'm a knotter, so I'm going to knot mine first, just so those ends won't come out. And then we'll thread them on. And then just hide them down as close as you can to where the gray and the white meet. And then just out anywhere. And I like to do the same color out sometimes, so I'm going to go out the top, pull that if you need to get the knot that you made through to the inside. And then we'll just give that a cut. All right, and now we're going to do a little line across his belly. And if you're not sure how much, what I like to do to guarantee, so I'm going to be, is it back stitching? I'm going to be back stitching around. So if you go around once, that's good to go one time, twice for a back stitch, and third for an extra. And that should be enough, but I never trust that, so I'm going to take another 1.5 feet or so. And if you're worried about saving yarn, you can always use some of that extra for the rest of the details, like the nose or the stripe or the pom-pom. All right, so let's get that in. Thread it on our needle, and somewhere just in the back, so I'm going to try and line up kind of where I started my ruffle. We're going to go between the 4 rows, so up 2, down 2. So we want to be in this middle, the middle of our rows. So we're just going to go in and skip 1 stitch and out. Leave enough of a tail to tie and put it in. And now we're going to go back into that hole we missed and go forward. So we're in the next stitch. Oh, I got threads everywhere. And don't pull that too tight, nice and loose. And then we're going to come backwards and go into that stitch we just passed and over around. So we're just going forward and then backward to where we just were. Into the next hole. And then where our other one ended. Sorry, I'm grabbing my yarn one. You can't see what I'm doing maybe. Try it a different way here if I go up. And we're just going to do that all the way around. So I just caught some stuffing there, and that's going to be a mess. I don't know if you can see that, but try not to catch the stuffing as you're going around. It'll save you a lot of heartache going back and trying to get rid of it. Where am I? About halfway. All right, now if you guys are if you're one who watches the whole thing and stays with me, I'm going to give you a little bit of a teaser. For about 4 years, I've been asked or requested to make Pennywise to go with the rest of my characters. And this is just a tiny little practice version, because after I make the old version of Pennywise like this, I'm going to be making the larger standing version of Pennywise. He's all done. I just got to prep my legs and arms. So I have one of each done first, and then I'm going to be starting to video him. I don't know if he'll be ready by Halloween, but he's going to be really close. And I also want to thank you for watching the whole video, because I really appreciate that, and that actually helps me out the most as far as where YouTube throws my videos in the algorithm. The more watch hours there are, the better it shows up somewhere in the search menu. Alright, now we're getting around to where we started. And because our rows, when you do amigurumi, are kind of lopsided, you're going to have a little bit of a... Oops, I didn't go too over. You have a little bit of a thing here. If you go a couple of times, like I'm going to only go once and it's going to be very obvious, but if you went a couple times in here, it might not be so obvious. And then I just need to come out where I started. so I can tie it and hide it inside. It's not too bad, but it is noticeable. That's why I keep all my rows in the back. Because at least they kind of hide. And then we're just going to put that on our needle and put those on the inside. Oh, here I said I was going to put all my details in the center up the bottom, and I didn't. So if you did close it, this is how you will, this is how you will get rid of your ends. And you're just going to go in somewhere and out. I'll come out the bottom. And I want to pull that gently because I don't want to pull these last stitches I just did. And then we'll give that a cut. And now we're going to do the arms. We don't need too much yarn for that. You may have a scrap handy that you can use. Probably about 2 feet of thread here. And that'll be more than enough. And what we're going to do is going to come up the bottom, and we're going to come up between the first 2 rows of gray and kind of centered under the eye. So see, it's kind of right in the middle where the eye is. And we're going to go out to the outside with it. So pull it through, leaving a little bit of yarn for tying. And we're going to wrap around this one stitch 4 times. So 1, 2, and you don't want it too tight, nice and loose, because you want it to puff out. 3, and then on our 4th one, we're going to go over to the other side, and we're going to match this. So wherever you figure is beneath the eye, this one is a little off-centered a bit. But see, it's pretty much in the center. And again, go backwards away from the center. And we're going to go around 4 times again. 1, whoops, I pulled that one a little tight. 2, 3, and then on our 4th one, we're going to come out the bottom so we can tie that to our other end. And if you think yours are a little messy or too tight or whatever, you can just take your needle and just kind of pull them up and wiggle, and that should kind of even them out a little bit. And we'll tie those ends. Give them a cut. And grab your black and we'll do the feet. So again, about the same amount you had for the arms. Thread that on your needle. And this time we want to come just above that front loop row. So we're at the very bottom of our last row of gray in the front. So the 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. And we just want to come up in between here. So come in the middle and the bottom. And we're going to come about the middle of the hand. So just like we did the eye. And this time we are going to go towards the center. And again, 4 times around that stitch. 1, 2, 3, and then on our 4th one we'll move over. And again, right in between the last row before our front loop row and the front loop stitches, underneath the middle of the hand and forward towards the center. and then just around that stitch. 1, 2, 3, and then on your 4th one, down and out the bottom so you can tie it. And notice when I'm coming out, I'm making sure I'm not beside where I went in, and that way there'll be a lot of stuffing in between when you tie, which will secure those down there. Give them a cut. I forgot to, this one is a little bit bigger than this one, so I'm just going to give that a little bit more of a tug and a wiggle there. Right, now we're going to do the little pom-pom accents, and this is just my scrap from where I went around here. Start up in the middle, center again. So we want to try and center it around a stitch going all the way down. So we're going to start at the top one. The way mine's working out is I have my hand, a hole, go around those 2 stitches, whole hand. Oops. So just around this stitch, and we're going to come down and try and find the center down here, 1 row below the last 2 rows. This is, see how I did here. So yeah, I did the last 2 ones across a stitch, so it turned out a little better. And then same thing on the last row, just above those front loop stitches. And then out. And I'll just show you in a second once I'm out. So the first one's smaller. This one's a little crooked, but I don't know how you fix that when your rows are kind of slanted around. So it's going to look like this. Tie that again. Whoops, I pulled that a little bit. Whoops, still pulling. There we go. Okay, give those a cut. All right, cut yourself another little scrap of red. And we're going to do the nose next. Thread that on. And we're going to be going in the same row that we attached the eyes. So we're going to go, there'll be the eye, 1 hole, and then we're going to come up and in. Leave enough thread on the bottom for tying, and we're just going to go around this stitch. And I think I went about 4 times. Let's see, we want this nose to be raised up a little bit. 1, maybe I went 3, let's see, 2, yeah, 3 is going to be enough for me, but you do as many as you need to. Come back out the center bottom for tying. Cut that off. All right, now we're going to do the little stripes under the eyes. And this is where I struggled because I wanted them under the eye. And because the backs of my eyes are wider than the fronts of my eyes, I could not like come up and around and go under the eye because the back's right there. So what I'm going to do is just kind of tuck it under here, and I'm just going to make 1 big line. Now you want to get straight under the eye, and I found it easier if you went into a stitch. So I'm going to go into this stitch exactly under the eye. And then I'm going to come over to the other one and do the same thing. So make sure, and if you have a hole, try and catch a bit of yarn in a stitch, and that will help keep your string from moving around once you've got it where you want. So I'm taking about half my yarn through, and then I'm going to bring it up, kind of tuck it, pull it under that eye, and then try and go straight up over to the next row. So this is the row above your eye, and then into this row somewhere. And you can make yours higher if you want. And then I'm going to come out the bottom somewhere. And I want to not pull that as tight as I did. So you can loosen it a little if you need to, and you want to kind of make it so they're lined up. So kind of like that. Let's thread the other side on and do the exact same thing. So I just want to pull my eye up a bit, scooch that under. And then go up to match this row. Straight up if you can. Again, I'm in a stitch, not a hole. And then come out the bottom center somewhere. That one worked a little bit better. You just might have to play with it a bit to make them even. And then when you're happy with them, just give them a tie. Cut those ends off. And then now we'll do the mouth. Now if you have embroidery thread, use that. But if you don't, all I do is I take a little scrap of yarn and I just divide my ends here. So there should be, I believe, 4 in all number 4 yarn. Then you're just going to pull that one little strand away from the others. So there's my one strand of my yarn. We'll thread that on. And this time we're going to go, so we're going to find our center stitch under our nose, and we're going to go in the 2 stitches around it and 1 stitch down. So start in the bottom again. You're going to come over to the outside, 1 row down from the nose. And try not to pull this too tight. Leave some string for tying. You're going to go down and over into that next stitch on the bottom, and then up over to the other side of the nose, 1 row up. So we're just basically making a V with 1 hole in the middle, and then you're going to come back down like this and out. So in that same hole you were just in, and out the bottom. And don't pull this too tight. There we go. We'll give that a tie. And again, I'm doing it loosely so I don't pull my mouth. All right, let's close him up now. And if you don't want to see all these little ends here, what you can do is just take a little bit of stuffing, and we're just going to cover them up. And you'll never know. All right, let's thread our end on now. So this is our finishing tail at the bottom. And all we're going to do is go around in these top stitches of our last row and weave in and out. So I like to go down from the inside first because that's where my knot will be. And if you have decided to try this in the plush yarn, just do about half or a third of the way around and then pull it, and that should help if your yarn breaks really easy, because 8 is a lot to pull that yarn through. And then once you're all the way around, give that a pull to close that up. And then I just go into the next stitch and tie my knot. And then you're just going to go up the center and out the top. Whoops, oh, that was lucky. You may just have to kind of shape him a little bit so his bottom stays flat, so he'll stand up. And now we'll add the hair. So I want mine to be about three fingers long. So what I do is I just use my 3 fingers, hold on to that end, and I'm just going to wrap around however many times I want hair. I just have 9 on mine, so I'm going to do 9 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you're going to pinch up at the top. You want to cut your end so it's about even with the rest, and then go in the center and cut all those, and there's your little hairs. And always make them a little longer than shorter if you're not sure, because you can always cut them afterwards. And for the first one, I'm going to go in the very center around this first row that we have. So in the center, down and around that row. Then I'm just going to fold my yarn in half, stick it on my hook, pull it through to bring up that loop a little bit, and then we're just going to pull those ends through that loop. And then we're going to do one on each side. So right beside, up through that center of that loop. Whoops. Put your yarn on, pull it through, and then pull those ends through. Make sure they're even. And then we'll do one on the other side. So I'm going over, down, around, up through the center again. Grab my next piece of yarn, fold it in half, pull it through, pull it through that loop. So there's my top 3, and then I'll just show you the next one where you're going to line it up. So what I did is I found the top of my eye, and then I just went over, I think 3. So 1, 2, 3, and then I'm just going to go up. I'm just going around that row right there. Attach that yarn, pull up my loop, make sure my ends are even, and then pull those ends through that loop. And I did 3 up on each side, and then I left it. I was going to separate these and brush them, but my daughter thought he looked hilarious like this. And I trust her opinion so much that I'm just going to leave him looking like this. And I don't even know what it's going to look like if it was brushed. So I'm going to just leave you to finish off the rest of the hair. And I'd like to thank you for watching. And don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button and click that bell. Not only does that help me out, but you'll also be notified every time I load a new video, as well as any likes, shares, and comments are always appreciated. I'd also like to say thank you to everyone who has been so kind to have hit the thanks button and sent me such generous donations. You will now be listed at the end of all my next videos as my super thanks friends. Take care, be safe, and happy crocheting.